Well, hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Single Dating Engaged Married podcast.
Got it.
Well, last time that we all met together, I'm Jacob Harkey. This is Elizabeth Saggers and Ben and Donna Stuart.
Hello.
The last time that we all talked was about your story.
Yes.
How you two began to date, get engaged, and got married. And I'm excited about this one. I love a Q&A. We're about to do question and answers on marriage from our people,
Okay.
Yes.
the listeners.
Cool.
We're going to jump into some questions that real people have about marriage.
Y'all are experts, right?
yeah,
Nailed it.
You got it all.
we're going to fix
locked
everything
in.
today.
Everything will be solved.
100%.
Solve it. We're solving the problem.
We got great questions. I will say that. I mean, they are, we'll get to as many as we can.
Yeah.
But they was great questions.
Maybe we'll do a rapid fire round at some point.
Boom.
Well, hey, let's start out here, kind of transitioning from before marriage into marriage. But what is something you wish you knew before marriage? So it can be as quick or long as possible, but something you wish you knew before marriage.
That I'm not always right.
Stuff. That was a hard lesson for you to learn.
It was hard for me to learn.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of, I wish we would have saved money sooner.
There you go.
That would probably be the biggest thing for me. Was just start squirreling a little away, boss. Yeah, you're going to be happy you did. So
Get your affairs in order. Yeah.
that's about as deep. We've talked about it. We did a lot of learning before, and then once you get married, there's a lot of learning how to dance together. But I don't know that I showed up going like, oh, I really didn't see this coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good segue into our next question, because you hear a lot about how finances in marriage can cause some stress, some disagreement. So more of just a general blanket statement. How do you both handle conflict? Something comes up, you don't agree. What's the game plan?
Yeah.
I think that we have to not just hear, but listen. Like listening is active. And so to just truly try to listen to him, listen and hear what he's saying. And instead of taking offense, go, okay, what is he getting at? What's the bottom of it? And do that. I have to do that without assuming his motive on something. I need to just let him tell me what he's thinking, and then just go from there instead of already thinking that I know, and then anything he says is going to offend me. You know what I mean? So I think that's probably the thing I had to grow in the most. But then once I was like, okay, this is how you do this. It really does play not just in marriage; it plays everywhere. And so, I would say not assuming his motive, but actually listening to what he truly means and what he's trying to tell me.
That's great. I think it's so important early in marriage too, to make the decision to keep short accounts. We're not going to let something irritate us and then go, oh, it's fine, whatever, and not bring it up. Some people want to do that, but in my experience, it's almost like if you have a river of love and trust and intimacy, and somebody does something, your spouse, that bothers you, and you go, it's fine, it's whatever. It's like a little bit of sediment that just gets into the river. And over time, when there's enough of those irritants, it just slowly builds like a silt bed that just stops the river of intimacy and love and life from flowing. And you see so many couples in year 5, year 7, that they're in counseling and the love is gone, the intimacy's gone. And if a counselor can get to it, it started way back in year 1. Well, you did this and it bothered me. And we just never dealt with it. And so for me, we decided early on, some of our best advice was we're going to keep short accounts. We're going to keep the circle small. If my feelings are hurt, I'm not going to react in the moment, but I'm not going to let the sun go down on my anger either, is what the Bible says, and give the devil a foothold.
Right.
The enemy wants to put a wedge between your marriage that distances you. And so you got to see, like, an unresolved conflict is where that distancing starts, and then suddenly our hearts are far from each other. And so for us, we're like, no, we're going to come together. And I think you've got to get really good in marriage at owning what you did wrong.
Totally.
There's just no place for ego. There has to be a humility. The scriptures say whoever confesses and forsakes finds mercy. And so when we come to each other, it's not just looking for what you did wrong. It's looking for, how did I miss that? What did I say that made you feel disrespected? I might have been right, but I went about it the wrong way. And so looking for not to win the argument against you, but for us to win solving a problem and getting back to intimacy. So I just don't want resentments to store up like sediment.
Yeah.
And so you got to keep short accounts.
Yeah. Maybe pressing into the practicality of that, because I would imagine a lot of married couples would hear that and you're like, there's wisdom to that. I want that to be the way we approach conflict. But sometimes I, like, in an argument, say something that I know I don't quite mean, but I know it's going to like get the reaction I want, or it could be hurtful. Like, how have y'all learned how to like fight well? You hear that different advice of don't go to bed angry. And some people are like, well, give it a beat and let yourself cool down. Like, how does that practically play out?
Yeah. Well, I think tone is everything, really. I mean, like, I use this analogy when I talk to kids about tone. Like, you can tune your guitar perfectly, and you can make the exact right shape, and you can get all the strings. But if you're not pushing down hard enough on the strings, it's going to get a terrible tone. So you could look like you're playing it exactly right, but if the tone comes out, it's awful, and you don't want to hear it. And so I think sometimes for us, I had to change my tone towards him, or he wasn't going to hear me at all, because it was like I was like trying to win, and I was being mean, and I realized Jesus was never mean, ever. He was angry, but he was never mean. And if I want to be like Jesus, I need to change my tone to kind. And the fruit of the Spirit is kindness, patience, peace, and to come in that way. My tone.
Yeah, Proverbs says a harsh word is like the thrust of a sword. And so you go, even if you hurt my feelings, it won't serve our marriage if I'm thrusting a sword at you. So I'm not going to say harsh words, right? But it's a gentle tongue that brings healing. So you go, okay, the goal is to heal this rift in our relationship. You said something that hurt me. We did something that suddenly we're apart. But when this rift occurs, it's in gentleness that we can facilitate healing. And it's a kind word that turns away wrath. So I don't want to stoke up wrath. I want to speak with kindness. And it's possible to be very honest and to say hard things with kindness. And so I think for us, it helped too to say, when you said this, it made me feel this way.
Like this, yeah.
And so it's not assigning motive. You're trying to make me look stupid. You were trying to embarrass me. That's motive. But you can say, when you made that joke, it made me feel belittled by you. And I don't like feeling that way. Yeah. And that gives them the chance to say, I don't want to make you feel that way.
Exactly.
And now we're learning how to communicate. We're learning how to dance together. But if I assume your motive and then attack my assumptions of your motive, you get defensive, and then suddenly we're winging swords at each other. And that's just not going to facilitate healing. So for us, the goal was not to win an argument. The goal was to restore unity.
Yeah.
And not to have a false unity that really just has this kind of eggshells sort of resentment built up between us. I do think do you go to bed when you're angry? I think scriptures are pretty clear, that you don't go to bed angry. You might need to take a beat in a moment if you're upset. You may not solve the whole problem that night.
Yeah.
But you need to at least go to bed and say, you know what, let's drain the anger out of the wound. Like, hey, maybe we have this big tough financial decision to make, and we're not going to solve it. But let's not attack each other. We both want to do the best thing, and we're just not sure what the best thing is yet. So let's acknowledge that. Let's trust each other's motives in that way. And let's pray. So you can still be not entirely aligned on a decision, but not let the anger fester and begin to damage your intimacy.
Yeah.
I think too, if you can see where they're coming from, it's so good if you can say, you know what, I see how what I said hurt in that moment, and I'm sorry. That's not what I want to do. I don't want to be like that. It's actually not what I meant. This is what I meant, but I can see where you would have heard that, because I would have heard that if it was said to me that way. Yeah. And let's just not talk like that.
Yeah.
And kind of but then that just takes all the acid out. It just really like allows you to feel more like a team again versus at each other. You're like, okay, good. Yeah. You and I, we don't like that. So let's not do that to each other.
Yeah. Empathy promotes unity.
Yeah.
Empathy dissolves shame.
Yeah.
And so it's good to be empathetic with each other. And humor helps too.
Yeah.
I remember I had a mentor who said when he and his wife disagreed, she would often get really sad that like, oh, we're not unified or whatever. And so he would always say, if we were synchronized swimmers, we'd score like a 2. And so he's just saying like this picture of them in the pool with their little swim caps on, bonking heads, just put like, okay, I'm acknowledging that we've disagreed, but we're going to make it through this. We're going to survive and maybe laugh about it later. That helped reassure her the relationship is not at risk.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where like we may be disagreeing on a decision, but our relationship is not at risk today.
Yeah, definitely. Staying on the topic of conflict a little bit, and I think you started to answer this, but it kind of made me think of a question that somebody asked. They asked, is it normal for married couples to fight? Which I believe we've kind of said, it's an inevitability that you're going to have some conflict. But they said, what kind of fights are abnormal? And I do think sometimes that conflict can escalate to where like, oh, there's something deeper going on here that needs to be navigated. What would you say to that person of what kind of fights are abnormal? And then what are those next steps of, hey, we're dealing with something really heavy and it feels like we just can't deal with this in a night, or that we need extra help or someone to come help us with it.
Yeah.
What would you say to that kind of person?
Yeah, it's always tricky. We say this in theology all the time. I'd say it in relationships too. When you say those words, what do you mean? And someone say, is it healthy to fight? You go, well, what do you mean when you say those words?
Fight, what do you mean?
For me, disagree. Like, hey, we don't see this problem in the same way. I don't think the way you handled it was the best way to handle that issue. But we don't fight like yelling at each other. We don't yell at each other. We don't fight like I'm going to freeze you out and not talk to you and make you guess what's wrong. Like these are not healthy ways of resolving conflict. So for us, conflict is an impediment to intimacy. We want to resolve conflict. We don't want to stir it up more by making the other person feel threatened or unsafe. And so if by fight you mean this person's attacking me verbally or physically, no, that is not okay in marriage. It is the two of us working together to resolve problems. Now, sometimes we face problems that you go, we don't have the tools to solve this. We actually don't know how to do this. And one of the greatest gifts God gave me early on was the first church I was ever on staff with. I remember being in the car the whole staff could fit in the car. There was just 5 of us. And one by one, they all started talking about their counselors. And I was like, what? What? Like they all went to counseling. And for me, I was like, man, where I grew up, like, that's an admission that you're a mess and you're supposed to hide those things. I was like, I can't believe y'all are so comfortable with this. But I loved it. They took all this stigma out of, hey, if we don't know how to navigate something relationally, why would we not bring to bear wisdom that could help us resolve problems?
Right.
And when you couched it that way, I was like, yeah, pride.
Yeah.
Pride would be the only thing that would keep me from seeking wisdom. And that's not a good reason. And so we've had different counselors in different times in our life, like professional, and then obviously in ministry or around other pastors. I think being able to be in a context where you're bringing your problems to other trusted people to help you resolve them is a very healthy thing to do.
How would you say this plays out when you're just navigating like different like convictions in marriage? Like say it's more of just like you're coming across like, well, how do we approach like what kind of movies are we going to watch? Or like the little things that maybe didn't come up in dating, but now you're married. Like what is that? It's not necessarily a fight, but you're maybe not always on the same page immediately.
Well, it's interesting because I think every human being, when you get into some gray areas, are we going to drink socially or not? Are we going to drink in our home or not? Or what kind of entertainment? You go, people come up with their convictions about those issues. I think we have clear, if you're a believer in Jesus, you have clear scriptural outlines on certain ways to behave. But then within that boundary, you may have some different, what is our particular interest in some of these areas? Or what are our guidelines? We might come in with different convictions. But once you've entered a marriage, the two have become one. Now the inner ring is the two of you and God. And so if you run into a place where you have different views, you don't go like, well, we're doing my view because that's the way it is around here. You're like, no. And if both do that or say, no, we'll just form separate circles. No, you already committed to each other. y'all have to decide what y'all's family values are. You already decided to be a family. Now you got to figure out what your family values are. And that's going to take conversation. I think what can help in that conversation is when someone has a conviction, you go, okay, tell me why.
Yeah.
What's the why behind the what? What's your concern there? And trying to understand and appreciate where each other are coming from, then you may land at a place of compromise, or land at a place where you go, you know what? So here's our family conviction. And maybe we both moved from what our individual single convictions would be, but we had confidence. If the Lord put us together in a covenant, then we will come up with the stipulations of how we move through the world as a couple. But if you have good communication skills, you're going to get there. How do we have wisdom, love, integrity in the way we treat each other? We're going to come to resolution. I think for Donna and I, whenever we found ourselves misaligned on something in marriage, it would surprise us. But underneath us, we had this confidence. We have a God we're praying to that loves us, and we have communication skills among us. We're going to get to a resolution, but we're going to do it in a way that doesn't beat down or belittle the other. Because if I just force you to my view, you're going to simmer in resentment, and we're going to have to deal with it again later. So let's not do that. Let's deal with it in a healthy way now, or else it's just going to keep coming back up.
Speaking of conflict, I think another category that you experience a lot of conflict is family, starting a family, having kids. It introduces you to a new season of life, and you have to decide, how are we going to do this together? So we had a couple different questions on families, but one of them just kind of said, hey, the little kid season, when you got the brand new children, having no extra time, what's a tactic for staying lovers and not roommates? So as you kind of navigate, hey, we have these kids, and suddenly we are just two coaches on a team trying to marshal all of the energy. How do we stay intimate and love our marriage with each other without it becoming this thing where we're these roommates or coworkers or whatever?
Well, I would say margin diminishes. There is no doubt. Once you bring in kids, your margin of time diminishes, but it doesn't disappear altogether. And so that's where you're like, it does feel overwhelming. It is a lot, particularly in those first couple days where you're sleep deprived. That's a form of torture. This baby's torturing you. But again, I do think you have to maybe recalibrate. Well, a date night used to be 4 or 5 hours out in the city, or it used to be a weekend away. And you go, okay, a date night might be a walk around the neighborhood. We have a family member or a trusted friend come sit with the baby while baby's sleeping, and we go on a walk, or we go sit out on the back porch. Or so you may just have to recalibrate. But the goal is not that all or nothing thinking. Well, we used to have these dates and now they're all over. You go, no, let's fight for that intimacy, but realize it may need to be recalibrated. And there's certainly going to be less margin,
I think you can just be spontaneous too. Like we're such creative people. So like you could just be like, hey, we're going to have a dessert today at such and such time. Like you can figure out like within the margins that you do have and keep it fun. I think that, it's funny if you like pull out the lens and look at how ridiculous life is sometimes, especially with kids. You're like, this is just crazy, and God let us be these people's parents. Hey, you want to like, while they're taking a nap, go and just hang out, and go do something. It's like, it doesn't mean that you have to go off and do some big romantic thing. It's just time really that you need, and just be creative.
I would say too, when you see that time diminish, now we got kids, so we have less time, discretionary time with which to do what we choose, then you go, okay, well then let's determine how to use that time by priority, not proximity. So if something really important just got onto the top of our list, like keeping child alive, what falls off the bottom of our list? And if it's investing in our marriage, no, that's going to stay up here. So what are some things that are taking time now that were easy to give time but need to fall out of the bottom? So don't make intimacy fall out of the bottom, but maybe how much TV you watch, maybe how much time you spend on your phone. Maybe you just have to look and go, okay, I'm going to cut out some of these things because my top priorities are my marriage and these kids. And so maybe some entertainment things, maybe that needs to go away for a season.
And then also sharpen the tools that you used whenever you were dating. Like, write notes and send, drop little sweet things around the house. Remember the things that only she likes or only he likes, and do those kinds of things. So there's a way to be creative and be sweet and continue to not just be roommates, but be lovers as well.
Yeah. And this next question we got, I think is related in that you're talking about you were just spouses and then you added on the title of parent. But underneath all that, you're also still just people. And this one question we got said, what would you tell someone who believes that marriage ruins good friendships? And I think what they're getting at is a view of marriage of it's hard to really maintain close friendships. I think maybe just in marriage, but also especially once you've had kids and you do have these other constraints on your time.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. You see human beings in general sort of like to collect with people who are in the same stage of life. It's not just the same age because we're going through similar experiences. That's how you make friends. Hey, we're having this similar experience together. Let's chat about it, laugh about it, etc. And so people like the similar stage of life. And so you see friendships naturally form in that. A bunch of single friends hang out. A bunch of young marrieds hang out. A bunch of parents and kids hang out. And it's tough when you're in that 20s, 30s for many people where you go, okay, some of my friends are getting married, but we used to all hang out and now they don't. That's where some of that tension can come in. And there will be a bit of that. When you get married, you go, hey, we may want to hang out with some other couples and talk about the challenges and opportunities of being couples. But I wouldn't oversell it that it means to get married is like, well, bye, we'll never see you again. Like, it doesn't need to be that way. I know for me, I was the last of my friends to get married. And I remember at my church, there was a couple that was about my same age, and they were constantly inviting me to lunch at their house and dinners at their house. I was like a part of their family, and not in a weird way. They were just real social, and we maintained a really vibrant friendship while I was single and while they were married. And I think for us, and Donna particularly has been great at this, we've always had single people orbiting our life and home, and it just doesn't need to be this hard break in stage. It will change things.
Totally.
Because you've added this really important thing at the top of your list of your marriage. You'll have to invest time in that, which means a diminishing amount of time out with your single friends. But it doesn't need to be the elimination of those friendships at all, even if you're in different stages.
Yeah. I do think there is a caveat that where, let's say a guy and a girl are really close friends and he goes and gets married to a different girl, and they're probably not going to be as close as they were, because
that's true.
You don't want to find too much enjoyment in somebody who's not your spouse. That just gets strange, and it's a hard deal. But I would say to that, there's a time for every season. Ecclesiastes, there's a you can go read it, but it's just there's a season. And some people, if you've had a great guy friend and he just got married, or your great girlfriend and she just got married, and you're a guy, the best thing you can do for them is cheer them on and be so happy for them that they have found someone to do the rest of their life with of the opposite sex, and just be a cheerleader in their corner. If it really bothers you and it starts making you resentful about like forming friendships with other people, like I would say that's more about what's going on in you than it is about what's going on in them. And so I would say, where are you in that, and how are you doing with who you are and your relationship with the Lord, and also just how do you look at your friendships, and how do you see other people, and are you putting too much in baskets that you shouldn't? Like, are you putting too much on those friendships? And so I would say celebrate your friends that get married, and celebrate the people who have stepped into having babies, if that's the season for them. So I would say the best thing to do is to celebrate.
Yeah. I do think, and I don't know if this was part of the question too, when you're talking about people of the opposite sex, like it is a dance where you go, obviously we have friends who are single. There's single women that I work with and we're friends, but I don't expedite relationships with women other than Donna.
Right.
Because I just think that you do have to be careful that you're not creating this other relationship that could become a romantic one that you're saying, I'm finding a deep enjoyment here that's not being provided by my spouse. That's where you can get into dangerous ground. And sometimes I think in the name of being egalitarian or what, we're just friends, some people can secretly start to enjoy a relationship too much with somebody that, if they're being honest, there might be some romantic interest connected to. And I think that can be dangerous.
Yeah.
So I do think you have to watch that. But I don't think you have to say, then therefore, it's just the two of us got married, now we're exiting the scene.
Yeah, no.
No, I think you go, it's just the two of us in this inner ring. The inner ring is us. But that inner ring will have a lot of friendships orbiting it that we will be a vibrant relationship with. But I don't have some other inner ring with another woman that Donna can't be a part of.
And likewise, I don't have another inner ring with a dude that,
Yeah.
Something that I think you both kind of hit on is it is a change that when you get married, things change. Your friendships change. They look different. You still have them, but they look different. I think even within a marriage, your relationship, friendship with your spouse, it changes a lot. And somebody asked this question, how do you continuously grow in life and in love with someone you spend so much time with? So as that relationship with the person changes, because you're like, it went from this kind of romantic dates, we see each other occasionally, to like every minute is spent with this person. How do you grow in that when you suddenly you're spending all of your time with that person?
This is where I think, I know this isn't about dating, but this is why when you are dating, it's so important to see, are we friends? You know, that's, I mean, you look at some of the language used in Song of Solomon, the names they call each other could be translated friend. I mean, this is someone that I just enjoy processing life with. Because with your friends, the wood on the fuel of your conversation are the experiences you're having, you know? So it's not just like, you complete me. It's like, isn't this crazy this happened? Isn't this wild this happened? So if you're pursuing experiences together, you're going to have plenty to talk about. And I would also say in that, as you're talking to each other, do your best to do that. Just not fall into roommates. Did you clean the garage? Did you take the trash out? You're like, wow, this is a blast. Try to fight for those times of saying, hey, where do you want to travel we haven't been to yet? This is our life, you know? What's something you want to do before 40? What are some things you want to do before 50? What do you want to do before you die? Let's start talking about, should we host some parties? How many? With who? Like, try to find wood to throw onto the fuel of your conversation. And I think if you do that, and you go, this is a person I enjoy processing with, then you just keep finding interesting things to process. So we don't read the same books usually, but we can talk about those together, you know? But we are always asking the question, what's in the next chapter? What's something we want to try? What's something we want to experiment with? Let's keep our life interesting. So it's not always about like, how do we keep our romance interesting? It's how do we keep our life interesting and be romantic as we pursue an interesting life?
I think too, just because like he works not where I work, you know, and I can ask like, how's your day? And how's it going? You know, and just, I get time to see what's going on in his life. Or if I'm doing something or have something going on, I can be, hey, can I get your thoughts on this or what? It's just like we talk like we're friends.
Talk a lot.
We talk all the time. And we enjoy spending time together, but we can even be in a room and not talk to each other. Like he can read a book and I can do something else. But it's just, I don't know. I think we just really enjoy.
This next question we got, switching gears a little bit, this person shared, I came to know Jesus 10 years into a 35-year marriage. Being unequally yoked is hard. What would you say to someone that is their marriage story?
Yeah. Well, scripture says something about that.
Yeah, I'd say it's interesting. You know, you have your Ephesians 5 passage about just the basic framework of marriage being a picture of Christ's love for the church. But you also have 1 Peter chapter 3, 1 Corinthians 7, that are actually exactly about this issue, because it was very common in the ancient world for this to happen. Someone would come to faith in Jesus already married to somebody who wasn't. What do you do? And so in 1 Peter, we did a whole sermon on this, so I won't kind of give it all here, but let me just read it if I can, because it'll help, I think. You know, he says, likewise, wives, be subject to your own husbands, so that even if some do not obey the word. So it's interesting, right away he's assuming something that was very common in the ancient world. You had these women coming to faith and your husband's not in that allegiance. He says that they may be won without a word by the conduct of their wives when they see your respectful and pure conduct. Peter's doing something wild here because back then, the husband was the head of the home. So your friendship group was his friends. Your decisions were his decisions. And so for even Peter to address the wives was to give them agency and power, which would have been very strange in that day. So you go, it's interesting. Whenever you run into people that say, doesn't Christianity sort of diminish the role of women? You go, not if you look through history and not if you look on the planet right now. Right. Everywhere Christianity holds sway, women tend to be elevated. And you see it here. He's actually addressing her as a human being with agency. And he's telling her, okay, you're in this marriage with this person who doesn't obey the word. They don't have an allegiance to the Lord. And he says, okay, what I want you to do is pursue a higher conduct for a higher calling. You treat them with respect. You treat them with purity. Why? So that they might come to know the word. So it's not fair. A marriage is supposed to be this good back and forth reciprocal thing. He's acknowledging, okay, you don't have that. But you pursue, I'm going to treat him even better than he deserves because I want him to know the God who motivates that behavior. None of this is easy, but it's true. And then he gets into the do not let your adorning be external, braiding of hair, putting on of gold jewelry, or the clothing that you wear, but let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious. Mm-hmm. What's interesting about that is some people get hung up on that, like, so are women not supposed to braid their hair? You're like, that's not the point he's making. He's saying, display a deeper beauty from a deeper place. Mm-hmm. So he's saying, okay, you're in this relationship that's not ideal. Treat them with a higher morality than even what they deserve because you have a higher calling. And then pursue a real depth of beauty in your life. Be a genuinely kind and loving human being. Mm-hmm. And hopefully they'll see that and be drawn to the God that promotes that. I saw that as a single guy. I would see that all the time. There were Christian girls, like in our work context, these guys were interested in that they weren't even sure why. And you go, it's because she's so kind, quick to forgive, gentle. Like seeing these deeper beauty qualities made her attractive. And so I think Paul says it pretty clearly in 1 Corinthians 7, that if you're married to someone who's not a believer, I'll just pull it up real quick. He says, to the married, I give this charge, not I, but the Lord. The wife should not separate from her husband. But if she does, she should remain unmarried, And so he says, where is it? That if any brother has a wife who's an unbeliever and she consents to live with him, he should not divorce her. And if any woman has a husband who's an unbeliever and he consents to live with her, she should not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband is made holy because of his wife. The unbelieving wife is made holy because of her husband. Otherwise, your children would be unclean, but as it is, they're holy. But if the unbelieving partner separates, let it be so. In such cases, the brother or sister is not enslaved. God's called you to peace. For how do you know, wife, whether you will save your husband? How do you know, husband, whether you will save your wife? So when he says they're holy before, it doesn't mean like they're fine with God because you're a Christian. He says later, like, stay in there because your conduct might lead them to be saved. Totally. So it's not easy, but stay in it. And again, we're not talking about situations of like maybe physical abuse or these are different. But if you're just saying, hey, I'm really experiencing that loss if I don't have this vibrant Ephesians 5 reciprocal marriage, you have two texts, 1 Corinthians 7, 1 Peter 3, that says you live with a higher conduct for a higher purpose. And you display a deeper beauty for a deeper purpose because you're hoping that that person will see the character of Jesus on display and you will win them over.
Yeah. That's really good. This other question feels really similar to that of navigating maybe some differences of where I'm at, where you're at. So somebody asked how to empower a husband to lead when he isn't stepping up on his own. So maybe there is kind of a similarity of our beliefs, but I'm taking this really seriously and he's not necessarily leading in the way that he's supposed to, or, stepping up in a way that he's supposed to. What would you kind of advise that person?
I think instead of shame, which is kind of what the world tends to do first, is shame. I would say instead of shame, celebrate with gratitude. the things that he does so well. He has a job. Praise God. He's providing for the family. Thank you so much for going to work every day. And thank you for providing for our family. And thank you for the ways that you've done. And name off the things that you're grateful for in him. Because thankfulness and gratitude will beget the thing that you're thankful for. And it will continue to grow. And then at that point, maybe you'll get those dopamine hits of, I have been said thank you to. I'm going to do that again. And not only that, I'm going to do this. And you know what? She likes to go to church, so I'm going to go to church. Or, you will watch it change him if you come to him with gratitude and not with shame.
Yeah, it makes me think of like some of our older friends, like with our son Owen, when he like holds a door open because we tell him to, but then they walk through it and are like, you are such a polite young man. What a gentleman. Thank you so much. And we know what they're doing. But we watch in his chest, he's like, I am a polite young man. I am a gentleman. And then suddenly he's like, boop, 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 at every door, so they're reinforcing good behavior because what's celebrated is repeated. I do think that's the best place to start. Look for all the good you can find and celebrate it, not shame them, right? Those are the easiest and first levers to pull. What's celebrated is repeated. Shaming tends to shut people down.
And shame, he's just going to...
So don't do that. If those don't work, okay, I'm not shaming him. I'm celebrating. He's still on the couch doing nothing. At some point, you're now in Matthew 18 territory. A brother is sinning against me, and so you go to them in private to win them over. I think you have to be honest with them. And not from a place of shaming, but say, hey, this hurts me for these reasons. And share your heart about how you feel with humility. But I think when you do that, I would encourage them to also ask, what can I do to be helpful to you? Because it's a reciprocal relationship. So if you're coming to them and saying, I'm not happy with the way you're failing to initiate in these areas, you may want to also ask, hey, are there ways I can be more helpful to you? I haven't. If you're going to confront their behavior, be open that they might surprise you with, hey, I feel like you really diminish me in these ways and it makes me not want to, you're not fun to play with. I just don't like talking. And how do you want them to say that to you? And how do you want them to respond when you confront them? Think about that, because that'll inform what you do. If you'd say, well, if they're going to confront me, I hope they do it with gentleness and respect, then do that. And say, if I want them to receive my critique with an open heart and an open mind, then let me solicit feedback and do it, not get defensive. So I just think you have to be open to seeing your part in the dance too. And maybe it doesn't feel equal, but you can still say, well, I want to improve in these areas,
This next question we got is for you, Ben and Donna, not hypothetical married couple. Someone wants to know, do you all pray together? Do you do a Bible study together? What does it look like for you growing in your individual relationships with the Lord as a married couple?
We do pray together.
Yep.
And we don't have a Bible study together. The kids and Ben in the morning. We never actually have had a Bible study together. Ben leads the kids in the morning while I'm getting the things ready to take them to school. But I wake up before everybody and spend between 45 minutes and an hour, coffee, Bible, Jesus, before anybody wakes up so that I can respond to them versus react to them. And that's my personal relationship with the Lord. And it's so necessary. And as I put that in place, it made me love my family more and receive my family more the way that they are. But we do pray together a lot.
Yeah, I'd say some good rhythms for us. She's right. So she gets breakfast ready for the kids, which is great. And then she takes off to get ready, and I sit with the kids at breakfast and do a little devotional. So we were in Esther today, and we just reading through books of the Bible and explaining them and on a journey. We have lunch together probably most days of the week, which is good.
Yeah.
And in that, we often end up talking about what we're learning. So that's where we don't do the same Bible study per se. We do go to the same church, and so we both are interacting with the same sermon, namely the one I give. And so we are in one sense learning the same things at church, so we can talk about that. But then it's also kind of nice to be having different devotions and different Bible studies, because then we can learn from each other. So we talk about God a lot in places like lunch, or for us at the end of the day, after the kids go to bed, we usually have an hour or two. We might watch a show a couple nights a week for an hour, but at least an hour a night, we're just catching up and visiting.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is sharing what we're learning. So I think for us, that's been more fruitful. Some of that might just be because I'm a teacher, like as a job. And I think we tried once to do a Bible study.
I
It was
just
more
can't- I
like,
was
you
like-
notice here, you're not noticing the parts.
And
here.
I'm like-
and it's like, this isn't good. This dynamic's weird.
Yeah.
But let's both learn and let's share what we're learning.
Yeah.
And that's what's made our meals interesting together, date nights, because we have something to talk about. Oh, I read this and it made me think of you. Oh, hey, I actually had a question about this. What do you think about this? I was
Yeah.
reading this. And we're both learning from each other, which I think has been healthy for us.
That's been good.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying there's room for the rhythms to look different, maybe by every married couple, but as long as it's something that you're communally processing together and involved.
I really
together.
don't know, Elizabeth, where it started. Where, I mean, it's so common for people to come to us and go like, well, now that we're dating, we have to have a unified devotional life, and we have to be
think
reading
it's
the
a
same
trend
book,
thing.
shoulder to shoulder, looking at the same book. You're like, no, you really don't. You both need to be growing in the Lord. And you both need to be talking a lot, but it doesn't mean you have to read only the same books at the same time. You don't
Yeah.
have to do that.
I actually kind of like that because you kind of said it. It forces you to do something on your own, but it gives you something to share together.
To share together.
So it's fun.
But I don't think it's wrong. Like I said, you might be in a small group where your small group's going through a book of the Bible and then y'all discuss it. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you're going to the same church and you drive away and you're talking about the sermon. That's great. There is a place to be learning the same thing together. So I'm not knocking that.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I talk to a lot of younger people that think, no, we have to have this full merger of our devotional experience. You know, that is not a requirement.
No.
But you do need to talk about the Lord. Like Deuteronomy said, talk about him. When you rise up, when you sit down, when you lay down, talk about him.
Yeah.
Well, we had a couple different questions on an interesting topic.
Okay. I don't know where you're going.
Lizzie made me have to ask these questions.
We're off the
Sorry.
road.
Which is about sex.
I feel like I was gonna say that. I feel like there's a soundtrack or something involved.
Oh, okay.
We had a couple different questions about sex, and I
Great.
just think it's important because a lot of the things we've talked about today has been not being on the same page.
Yeah.
How do you navigate not being on the same page? And a lot of the questions about sex were when you're not on the same page.
Yeah.
The first one was how to approach pornography in a marriage when partners disagree on ramifications. I think there's probably something really important to kind of wrestle with there.
Yeah. That one's real clear.
Yeah.
I mean, the scripture says multiple places, flee sexual immorality. The word sexual immorality is the word porneia, which is kind of a junk drawer term in the Bible about sexual experience outside of the covenant of marriage. And so porn fits safely within the world of porneia. I am being sexually aroused by watching other human beings than my spouse. No. So Proverbs is very clear about that. No, enjoy the breasts of your wife. Why would you spill your streams elsewhere? Like, do not go to these other women for my sexual experience. This is a great gift God's given us to enjoy within the covenant of marriage. And it's meant to be the two of you. So keep the marriage bed pure. That's the call we're being given by the scriptures. And so, no, I just don't think pornography has any place in that. And so the person was like, well, it gives us ideas. No. Explore together. That's the enjoyment God's given you, is the two of you figuring out how do we enjoy this gift of sex in a way that honors and values each other, but we do not need to bring other people's experiences into it. I absolutely think that's a clear boundary. And if that is a place of disagreement, Matthew 18 is your passage where you confront that person. If they disagree, you bring more voices to bear, because I think pornography is very destructive in a marriage and it needs to be out.
Yeah. I think almost, yes.
I was just going to say,
that clear?
I can't agree more. I will say that let's say something has happened and someone stumbled and found their way to pornography and then was convicted and came and confessed and was, asking for forgiveness from his spouse or her spouse. And that is not a place to bring, after you've forgiven that person, you're done. You move on. You don't have to keep bringing. Well, you just keep going and looking at porn, or what about these? You don't need to do that. You don't need to shame anybody for having stumbled there. Yeah. But it needs to have been confessed and repented of, and it doesn't get to be in your life.
Yeah.
You have to walk away from it. But if someone has stumbled in it, it's not a place to go, oh, well, then you're just disgusting. Like, that's not okay at all. There's love, there's forgiveness, there's grace in Jesus.
Yeah.
So,
And I think a lot of it is the different ways we talked about navigating conflict is to do that with that topic as well. Don't just write them off because of this thing. But if they came to me and confessed and repented, how do we now work through this just like we would work through anything together?
Well, it's interesting too. I mean, you look in the New Testament, and I think every letter of Paul's, he talks about how the grace of Jesus Christ transforms us from the inside out. Now let's talk about the distortion of sexuality that's come into your world. I mean, he's just very honest about it with everybody.
Right.
And so you go, this is a very common human experience for this powerful gift of sexuality to be distorted. And so the New Testament showing you, actually, this is the healthiest place to enjoy this thing. It's a gift from God.
It's a gift.
But it's meant to be enjoyed in these constructs. And so I think even now you look and see the statistics on pornography. I mean, particularly among younger people, it's so much, so many people, particularly young men. It's coming at you early when you're not looking for it. It lodges shame into your heart. And so many people are going to come into marriages with a struggle with pornography. And I do think what you're saying is right. I mean, I would be one of those. It was enormously disappointing for me to know. I didn't have the awareness as a kid. The pornography I found around my house was a way to sort of deal with the pain or loneliness or sadness of my parents' divorce. Like, I didn't necessarily know that's what was happening. I had great discipline around it as a young man, accountability, but I was disappointed in marriage to see there was still a temptation to look at it at times. And I was like, I was really disappointed by that and really felt ashamed of that. And Donna was great at not shaming me about that, but also not saying, oh, so let's find a place for it in our lives. It's like, no, you love me, you care about me, but let's go to war on this. Let's get this out.
Yeah, and you get real tactical on how to combat it together. Not just, oh, that's your thing and you got to go deal with that. It's like, hey, I'm on your team and this is not invited. And I forgive you and let's move on, but let's put some guardrails in place so that we don't do this again. And praise the Lord, we have freedom from all that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think the other side of that coin in some ways is, okay, some people, they're struggling because their spouse is going outside their marriage to find this. But then inside the marriage, there's how do we handle this together? We had two similar questions. One said advice on handling sexual rejection in a healthy way. So I think it's like, okay, I'm not going elsewhere. I'm coming here, but you're not reciprocating.
Yeah.
So maybe that makes the temptation to go elsewhere worse. So how do you kind of navigate that as a couple of, okay, my wife's not in the mood. That was the other question. What do you do if your partner's on the mood?
Yeah.
We have so many friends engaged right now. We're officially in April where the weddings are coming and they're all doing those premarital surveys of what are your expectations, this or that. And we've all just been laughing because they are wildly different. And so it makes sense. Like this is something that's going to come up because expectations are, as it would show, not always perfectly aligned right out of the gate in marriage.
Which is why that premarital counseling, where with some good counselors, you bring that up, because I think people want to say that in the modern culture, like, no, men and women are all the same. And you're like, take a survey, see what y'all say, see how it comes out, and what their expectations are, and they will often not be aligned, but you can have a conversation around it, Paul talks about it, right? To not deny one another your conjugal rights, and so he's saying, hey, like, don't deny it. Why? Well, that means within marriage, they're meant to enjoy this experience. And so for you to withhold your body is keeping from them an enjoyment they're meant to have. So at some level, you've got to go, my job is to come and meet your needs and care for you. But it's both, he applies it to both, because both are meant to do that. Both are meant to say, how do I please you? How do I please you? Where sexuality can get off the rails sometimes within a marriage is when someone says, this is about me, what works for me.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I don't want that. And you go, no, we're meant to find a way to please each other.
It's
the language he uses.
Like you're giving yourself.
So it is. It's about, how do I make you feel good? What do you need? What do you need? at an emotional level, a relational level, and a physical intimacy level, and then finding, so what's the right balance for us? But what happens when you're turned down, right? What's great is Song of Solomon. I mean, it's there. There's a great passage in Song of Solomon, where he shows up and it was like knocking on the door, "Arise, my beloved, my beautiful one," and she says, "I just got undressed. How can I get back up again?" Like literally she's just like, "Sorry, not tonight." And you don't see him say like, "Okay, he's not, he doesn't shame her. He doesn't yell at her. What does he do? It says he put myrrh on the door handle. The very thing she refused to open, he blesses with anointment. The imagery there is he responds to sweetness with her. Even though I didn't get what I want from you, I love you, and he's gentle with her. Yeah. And then what does she do? She feels convicted and rises up to go find him. And so it's when we are gentle with one another, with mutual respect and mutual concern for the other, then you go, okay, well, then now I want to engage this conversation about sex, which is a delicate conversation. People come in with different expectations, different experiences, different fears. And you have to go, can I trust that this person will take care of me in this space? And so you want that sense of each person saying, I am here to help serve the other. And when you both have that mentality, it works.
Kindness is so alluring. Patience is so beautiful. It is a magnetic pull. Whenever you experience kindness from him, really, in the moments that I'm not really feeling it, and he's so sweet. It makes me go, okay, I could probably gear up for this, and this will be great. And then come to find out, it turns out being the best thing that we did. And what I think is so interesting about sex is, in marriage, it's such a gift, but it's such a gift of communication. It's so good for your marriage to have sex because you are communicating in levels that no one else gets. You're the only one who gets that form of communication to that guy. And you with Rebecca, like you're the only one who gets that. And so it's just so cool that no one else created on this planet gets this but us. And then it just makes the marriage stronger. So
Awesome. Well, we've got time for one more question. Someone wrote in, what is your number one piece of advice for marriage?
Number one piece of advice.
Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Yeah. So I think for us, building our marriage on the foundation of the solid rock of Jesus Christ. And I mean, I know that sounds like what pastors are supposed to say, but I mean, like you go, okay, his word is going to guide the way we treat each other. When you know that, you have an enormous confidence, that I know she's going to respond to me in a godly way because she has this allegiance to God. So even when I'm not at my best or don't say it right, even if we disagree or maybe she's harsh at a moment, I have such confidence that her life is built on a holy reverence for the Lord. She's going to come around and treat me in a godly way with grace and truth. And she has the confidence of knowing I'm going to do the same thing. We both want to honor God in the way we love each other. And when you have that foundation, it just makes you feel so like, then we can take on the world. We can take on any problem. We can take on any issue because I trust that this isn't just built on, am I serving you well enough? This is built on, we're both going to honor the Lord with how we love each other. And that foundation is critical. Don't settle for any less than that. Everything else, he's funny, she's sweet, we like each other, we have similar hobbies. That's all flimsy in the face of the difficulties of life. You want a house built on the solid rock of the grace and the love and the power of Jesus. And when you do, then your marriage will weather any storm. There is no conflict you cannot overcome, no hostility that can't be quenched. You want that foundation under your marriage.
Yeah. And this is basically that. Your first love is Jesus. And if you are making sure that you are not spending more time at your lesser loves, your second loves. Like he's my second love. My first love is Jesus. And what's beautiful is if I just keep receiving the love from him daily, it's going to spill out and be pure and robust and amazing because I'm receiving the love from Christ every day in the daily things. And that I'm going to be a good wife to him. And he's going to be a good husband to me as we receive the love of Christ in such a I can't get enough kind of way, And it really does make our team that we are as a married couple such a picture of our first love and his bride. And so I just think, don't forget about your first love. Put first things first, and then second and third things will fall into place. I believe that was like C.S. Lewis or something like that. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank y'all so much
We
for
make it?
answering questions. I think we did it. I think,
Yay.
yeah, we solved marriage. Great job, guys.
So much, man.